Hello, everybody. Happy Tuesday. Thank you all for joining. Thank you, Mr. Hammer. Thank you, TND Tesla. Thank you to the mods in the chat. And it's Tuesday, so we look at everything. Zeno as well. I see you out there. Let me just make sure I do have volume. Zeno, I do. Awesome. That's always good. So let's jump in. This is a story about what's going on with on-chain, some technical analysis. We'll look at some pair charts. We'll talk about all of the chaos in the Wild West. And we're scratching along the floor. And this August, we expected August, September to suck. But they're actually almost worse than expected. So let's go. First of all, as I mentioned, long-term holders will be a significant part of this story today. Crypto markets at about 1.04 trillion. Volumes are low again. We're just scratching just under that 26K level. Nothing really happening. Bitcoin dominance is 48.4%. Ethereum has been stronger over the last week, which is good. And Ethereum dominance is still 19%. That's holding up better than the Bitcoin dominance. The best performer is jobs. And fear and greed is 37. People are afraid. So let's start with, of course, disclaimer. This is edutainment, you know. And if you want to amplify your intelligence, you know to subscribe. You will learn 44 new things today about what's going on in the world. Now, I always say we start with where there is the most news. And today, sadly, it's mostly bad news. So let's jump in. Crypto fire. Thank you for being on fire. Let's talk about fear and greed. First of all, we're down to 37. And it's like we bounced along, just like the volatility, lack of volatility, I should say, in Bitcoin. We bounced along 50 to 54 to 56 for like 3 months. And then all of a sudden, fear strikes from one day to the next. And here we are, day 6 of fear. Wow. Who's afraid, though? If you've been in this for a long time, you've turned fear into an opportunity. Anyway, let's talk about money flows. And here they changed, the CoinShares team changed the way they show it, but the little black line is what you need to focus on. And digital investment products actually saw outflows totaling 55 million over the last 7 days. And this is because obviously, you know, the spot ETF is not imminent. People are taking their foot off the brakes. They think it's summer. We've got time to put cash somewhere else, etc. So Bitcoin saw outflows totaling 42 million. That reversed the prior week completely. And Ethereum saw 9 million of outflows. And we'll look at some of the other assets. This is the breakdown of the assets, the flows by asset. You see the 42 and 9 out of Bitcoin and Ethereum. Solana was flat, which is a win in this regard. Short Bitcoin was down too, which is good considering it's actually up today. Litecoin down 600,000. And money flew into XRP, 1.2 million. And Cardano, 100,000. So overall, an interesting mix. Everything seems to run counter whatever the week is. It's interesting to watch. Now let's talk about the big three over the last week. And Ethereum won the day, down only 10% at 1666. Hope people aren't offended by those 3 6s there. Bitcoin down 11% to 26K. And Binance down around that hovering scary level between 215 and 205. We're at a 205 right now on Binance. So again, interesting to see. I think I touched on it over the weekend. I think it was Saturday that Ethereum had a lot of tailwinds all of a sudden. And we'll talk more about some pairs too. Let's look at altcoin season. You can see here Bitcoin's in the black in the middle and most stuff is in the red with a couple of exceptions to the left. Again, that is over the last 90 days. So Bitcoin's been holding up pretty well with a couple of outliers. And some of those outliers are questionable, so I won't even dig into them. Let's talk about some sentiment news as well. A lot of people are buzzing about this, saying, look at this exciting stuff. Cardano regains the top development activity slot as the only project with 500 plus daily submissions. Okay, and it says this is the development activity past 30 days per Sandbase. Okay, you got Cardano number 1, Polkadot number 2, Kusama, which is nested under Polkadot number 3, and on and on. So I looked at this because this didn't make sense compared to the data I look at and the data feeds we get into the AI engine. This is what's going on. And you notice as well, when you look at the previous chart, Santiment only covered certain coins. So it's like, it's beginning to look like Yahoo Finance for some reason. Anyway, per the IA engine over the past 30 days, Ethereum was number one for what I call WADs, which are weekly active developers. And below part is commits for the month as well. And Ethereum was also number one for both. When you look at the WADs, Polkadot was number two for both the weekly active developers and the most commitments. And then you have Cosmos was number three for the weekly active developers. And Solana was number three for the weekly commits. And then all the way down the line, Cardano was number 9 for the WADs and for the commits. So again, Santiment used to be very good. I don't know what they're doing. Their data is wrong because our data is checked from 2 different sources. Anyway, enough of that. Just watch what you believe on the internet. ApeCoin, this is interesting. The reason I highlight this is because when you see things being drained off an exchange, it's actually a good sign for the asset. When you see things being dumped onto an exchange, it's not. So this is the inverse to Bitcoin escaping exchanges, as I call drainage. ApeCoin is going ape on exchanges. And ApeCoin, by the way, is a cryptocurrency. It's an ERC20. Anybody can spin an ERC20 coin up in 10 minutes, but it was the coin launched in March 2022 for the Bored Ape Yacht Club. And it's just a miracle to me how people still dabble in such stupid stuff. Anywho, it's not doing well. And the crypto compendium score here, you can see ApeCoin has a score of 3.85 in the compendium, which immediately tells you it's like way under the list. You want a high number here of at least 6.5 for it to be even considered investable. So be careful of that, everybody. And people still are degenerating into all sorts of crap. No matter whatever I say, it doesn't matter. And yeah, you could probably make a fast buck if you're very, very good, but odds are you won't. So anyway, that's ApeCoin. Let's look at some DEX activity. Summer slumber we've been talking about for the summer months. Here we are. DEX volume represents that too. Even though August is not complete, you can see the volumes are way down on what they were in July, June, etc. And that's just typical. That's why it's a good time actually to attack the market and take advantage of the fact that people aren't in the market right now. Let's look at Grayscale. Grayscale discounts actually went the wrong way. So they were under, last when I did this last week, the GBTC discount was about 24.97 or 24.87. Now it's back up to about 27%. And the ETH is also back up to about 36.9%, but it was at 55 5 weeks ago, which is a big move. But net, it looks like everybody's kind of taking the foot off the gas. The lawsuit, Grayscale against the SEC, that was postponed a little while. So we'll see what happens. I do believe Grayscale will prevail because the SEC doesn't have a leg to stand on, as they say. Let's skip this because I forgot to update these 3 charts. Busy morning with everything going on, but we're going to switch gears now to the ugly news. And we don't even have to look at the last 7 days. There's a few bright spots with Tesla, Nvidia, and a few other names, but most equities are down. And of course, crypto is down. I'll discuss next. So this is Balancer. First of all, a warning to anybody out there. Crypto is still the Wild West. And Balancer is experiencing a similar situation to what Curve did a couple of weeks back. And it's recommended to, if you do have any assets on any version 2LP, which is a liquidity provider, pools and Balancer, get off and be careful. Only play with the stuff with play money. Never put real money on these types of things. They're just too unsafe, too immature. And if you're unsure about your pool type, it's advisable to withdraw your assets regardless. And also remember, if you have any positions you staked in Aura pairs, be careful there too. And that is the official notification from Balancer 4 hours ago. So again, DeFi is super risky. Just use it to play. Wait for it till it's mature before you play with real money. Now, back to the ugly news. Binance Drainage. They lost another $125 million drained from the accounts in just 1 day. And this is a remarkable shift in the Bitcoin landscape, as Binance experienced one of its biggest outflows to date, again, especially over the last couple of months. So everybody's getting very, very worried about Binance. And why, I'm not sure, but this is another piece that came out from K33 researchers, sort of related, but it's probably a bad look to get wrecked on Bybit or any of these different platforms. So maybe they don't disclose the truth of exactly how many people get wrecked. And this is some great investigative research by K33. And you can see here that some exchanges are not accurately reporting their liquidation data. Specifically, Binance and Bybit have been consistently underreporting their liquidation data since 2021. And the open interest provides a much clearer picture of exactly the severity of the crisis experienced by Bybit and Binance. Despite having considerably lower liquidation volumes, Binance and Bybit witnessed a significant drop in open interest from 24,600 Bitcoin and 24,700 Bitcoin respectively, which is notably higher than the decreases observed in OKX and Deribit. So again, more funny games in the Wild West here. You know, customers are losing maybe their life savings in the space of an hour, and it's not reported. It's like, oh, look, everything's fine in our exchange. Don't worry. It's safe to play with leverage. But be careful for the umpteenth time. Anywho, back to Binance. You'll see here, Binance just hit a 52-week low. Everybody was concerned about breaking the 215 level. Well, it's 204, 205 right now on Binance. And the question is, will it survive? Is anybody looking out for it? I know that CZ is shoring up the token as much as he can. And that was pretty clear over the last 2 weeks from looking at some on-chain activity across different pools. But this is a piece of perhaps good news, a little bit of TA here, a little bit of what they call BD, which is bullish divergence. And this is from Vestinda. And you can see here, they spotted on the daily here, bullish divergence for the RSI. For Binance, we'll talk more about some other RSI shortly as well. It seems to be a big topic these days, especially when things are either heavily overbought or oversold. But if this bullish divergence is correct, this could mean a bottom at around this 203, 205 mark for Binance. We'll see. But from that perspective, it's a little ray of sunshine. Would I touch Binance? No. In addition, it's not the only token to hit a 52-week low today. There are so many. It was a record-breaking 52-week low today for many, many different tokens for different reasons. But top of the list is Avalanche. You've got BNB, Bonk, for all the Bonk fans out there. Flux. Somebody was talking to me about Flux the other day, and there you are. Flux hitting a new 52-week low. Hex, of course, they does that every day. And Matic hitting a 52-week low as well. Pretty stunning. So again, the market is really, as I said at the beginning, kind of scratching along the bottom, a little bit worse than many people had expected. And things can rebound pretty fast, but be careful out there is kind of the message. Now, somehow related to some of these 52-week lows could also be dumpage and people fearful of holding bags when there's a huge unlock on the horizon. So here are the big unlocks for the next 7 days, starting with the biggest, Avalanche, $101.91 million, Uniswap, $15 million, Lido, $14 million, DYDX, $12, Filecoin, $12, Polkadot, $11, Cosmos, $7, GMT is there about 4, near a little bit 3 million, Sui 3 million, small numbers. But if you aggregate all the small numbers though, with things like Sui, it does add up to a lot over a given time of year. And there's a direct correlation, of course, between price action and how much dumpage there is. Just the name of the game. Speaking of dumpage, some people want to dump the US dollar. And this is the BRIC leaders meeting in South Africa this week. And they are looking to expand their BRIC club, which is Brazil, India, China, Russia, Saudi Arabia, and a whole bunch of other countries are dying to join. In fact, there's another 40 countries that would love to be part of the BRICS project. And I think Indonesia is one of them too. But Russian President Vladimir Putin, since he's wanted under an international arrest warrant for alleged war crimes, he is not traveling, but he will join virtually. So you will not see this covered by Western media because they're NFI. They're not invited to the party. Anywho, speaking of one of the problems with the dollar is this is where we are with federal interest payments on debt. just about to broach $1 trillion. And there's a lot of other things happening as well right now that are very, very serious. And I've been talking about what's going on. There's less tax money, especially from last year. Nobody made money last year because of the terrible market situation. There are bigger deficits. The deficits are exploding. Debt is exploding, not only for the Fed, but also for businesses and individuals. Credit card debt, etc., is going crazy because there's higher interest payments, resulting in even larger deficits from everybody. And if this continues, this will continue. It's in a death spiral. There's no way the U.S. Treasury can dig its way out of this death spiral, this colossal pile of debt. But they keep the rates high. That's ultimately just going to just explode everything upwards. This is just spinning out of control. And I talk about this every week, but it's happening way faster than I even expected. So I expect $2.7 trillion of deficit for the fiscal 2023, which is monstrous. Anywho, if you want all of this recapped, every video I do is recapped in Substack. 13 cents an edition, and whatever $45 a year is. $45 is typically what Substacks charge per month, but our community writers do all this for us, so we're very grateful. Thank you to them. Now we switch gears to the good news. You see, it's going to get a lot better. But as I promised to you, I always start with whatever there's most of, and there was most bad and ugly news today. So good news, everybody. It may seem like a nasty summer slump, but only 238 days to the Bitcoin halving, which is not too bad. It's still slated for April 17th. I think it might come a little bit earlier because the hash rate's increasing, which we'll see. It can process things a little bit faster, so we might still look at April 14th, but either way, we'll see. And Bitcoin volatility is back. You can see here, it's still extremely historically very low. A lot of people are like, oh my God, the volatility is so high. How can we deal with this? But look, historically, no, it's not. In fact, if you look at the tight band with which Bitcoin has been trading over the last week, ever since the last 6 days, the dip, the liquidation of leverage bets, it is still very flat. So that's actually a good thing. And again, we just got to stay above a certain level, which I'll talk about in a second too. So first of all, we're going to look at some more RSI. We did look at the Binance RSI, the BNB token RSI, but Bitcoin is now at its lowest RSI on the daily. A lot of people look at the 2-week chart and the 10-day chart and the 1-week chart. I just like the daily because that's the most accurate for me. And you can see here, the RSI is at the same level it was on March 2020 during the C19 dump, which shows you how oversold we actually are. Now, the good news is, okay, not spreading hopium here, but historically, when RSI is at these levels, it goes up from here, which means the price goes up. It's very rare to be so oversold and then become more oversold. So that is good news in my mind, based on history. And I hope history repeats. And last week's sell-off also, by the way, is very small in relation to some of the sell-offs we had in the past. So here, this beautiful chart from the team at Glassnode, you've got March 2020, which we just spoke about. That was a nasty sell-off. But literally, you had literally an hour to take your rifle out and go snag some super cheap Bitcoin, sub 4K Bitcoin. It was like a very short window of time. Then we had May 2021. Then we had Luna and 3AC in 2022. Then FTX in November 2022. And then we have the worst sell-off so far in 2023. Okay, now the weekly sell-off was about down 11.3%. And the mean for these nasty sell-offs is about 12.6%. So again, thank you, Dog One. You can see that it wasn't that bad at all in the larger scheme of things. Let's look at this as well. This is so far, another representation of the deepest year-to-date sell-off that Bitcoin has had. Again, on the daily, it went down 7.2%. But when you go back to other points in time in the past, 7.2% was a nothing burger. But the asset is larger now and it's a little more stable. So 7% is still pretty nasty. And it scares the heck out of people, especially when they're on vacation and they're not on top of the market and everything else. In addition, let's look at this. This was 28,300, which is a critical level. But the longer something is out there, the more the averages roll up. So the short-term holder cost basis is now $28,600. And that is one of those nice levels that we kind of would like to be back at if we could. And the sell-off price did push this average down a little bit, and this has historically literally provided support during robust uptrends. So breaking this is not a good sign. And the realized price and the long-term holder cost basis is some distance away. That's like 20,300, which puts the market in a weird position from a psychological standpoint. Do we go up from here, or do we go down to, wherever? There's a bunch of different choices. It's like you got 3 different routes we could follow here. And who knows what's going to happen. But either way, based on the RSI, it's still pretty positive. Based on where we are from the history in the bear market, it still looks like a very early bull market, but it has people very rattled too. Now, this is probably the single most important chart I'm going to share today, and this is how the long-term holders are still in control. Now, whale manipulation seems to be apparently in its final act. We may have seen one of the big final whale dumps happening, because each time it happens, it's as if short-term holders get weaker and weaker. They lose more and more position, and they hand it over to the long-term holders. So right now, you can see here, the long-term holders have the vast majority of over 76% of all Bitcoin, and the short-term holders have less and less. And they keep getting kind of wicked out, liquidated out, etc. And that is the problem. And that is why we went down to 25K last week. But some people believe, the bulls are in defense mode, but also, the huge amount of the supply is held by these long-term holders, and they have no intention whatsoever of selling Bitcoin before it goes a lot higher from here, which is a good sign. Now, another angle of proof that the long-term holders are almost, I didn't say in full control, but almost in control here. You can see the blue line on this chart versus the pink line. And as time goes on, the long-term holders are controlling more and more of the supply. And that is staggering, and that is powerful. It's nearly 15 million of the Bitcoin that are out there are held by the long-term holders. And there's not much held by short-term holders. So when you have new players who want to come in and buy up a lot of this stuff, long-term holders are not going to sell. Only the short-term holders will. But they no longer hold very much, so it's a bit of a catch-22. And the only way is up. And as long as the demand remains the same and the price, the supply is cut in half in 230 to something days, we're going to be in very good shape. So stay healthy till then. Now let's look at another pair. We did talk about at the beginning that Ethereum is holding up better than Bitcoin, but I decided to look at the ETH Bitcoin chart. And you can see here, it's in this little kind of a squeezed channel towards the right. And I put these lines in literally months and months ago, and this is on the daily. But you can see here that the ETH Bitcoin chart has been bouncing off that lower line with the overall trend being up. In addition, at the bottom, you got mean reversion, also down in no oversold position. So, if you're looking at this and you're looking at, the ETH futures capability coming out soon, which is normally a boost to Ethereum as well, and you look at, one of the reasons I swapped Bitcoin to Grayscale ETH was because of the discount, and also a little bit because of this chart too. So I do believe that Ethereum could outperform Bitcoin as we go forward. But of course, Bitcoin is the safer asset. So we always have to balance that risk and reverse and reward. But similar to Bitcoin ETF filings, ETH filings also have a specific timeline for the future, and they are shorter. The Valkyrie ETH futures deadline, I think, is October 3rd, and the rest are October 16th to 18th. So we could have that ETH future contract, and that could be big for this asset class. It could bring in a lot of institutional money looking for yield, and then they can hedge their risk using the futures, and that will drive the price up. So what's that, another 2 months? Watch this space carefully. Oh, by the way, the price level, the buy signal was at 0.061. It's currently at 0.063. It wouldn't surprise me if in 6 months or so it's at 0.08 as we go forward. So watch that carefully. Back to Bitcoin versus the QQQ. QQQ is going to have a big day tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen. We have NVIDIA earnings. If they don't blow it out of the water, that could mean carnage for disruption stocks. So fingers crossed. But as for everything that I can see is the demand is through the roof. The question is, are they able to put the chips in the hands of customers and realize revenue? That's kind of the magic bogey number for tomorrow. But we'll be watching that very carefully. And NVIDIA had a huge day yesterday, weekday today. But Tesla was up today, which is good. But anyway, if you look here over the last 90 days, just to put things in perspective for Bitcoin, Bitcoin's actually up over the last 90 days. And the QQQ is up 12%, Bitcoin's up 8%. So all is not lost despite the weakness when you zoom out. Now, it is Bitcoin season again. We've gone back from kind of altcoin season. And the score is about 24, which means a vast proportion of Bitcoin's beating the vast proportion of all altcoins as well as we go forward. Now, I did check in every week. I check in on the options action to see if it changed over last week, and it has done so. There's more bets now on the 50 to 52K level for Bitcoin for March 29th, 2024. And the reason I choose that expiry date is that's right before the halving, which means there'll be a lot of buzz in the Bitcoin market, a lot of anticipation. Put call ratio is 0.17. That's up from 0.16 last week, but that still is extremely bullish. Switching gears, looking at Ethereum, they are also up too. Looks like there's more bets at 2,900 and 3,000 than before, and the put call ratio fell to 0.14, which is also way better and even more bullish than Bitcoin. So what I'm trying to paint a picture of, I'm pulling in tons of different data points that show that ETH all of a sudden is a lot more bullish than Bitcoin. And Bitcoin is hella bullish. Normally it's the Bitcoin's day in the sun pre-halving, but Ethereum is looking very bullish too with all the stuff that's going on. So that's where we are. Now, switching gears to Tesla. Tesla just became the world's largest energy storage system supplier in the first half of 2023. But hold on, it's a car company. What's this energy storage stuff? Well, they just did. And they beat the leading player as a Chinese company called BYD. They also make cars. And the list of storage supply companies are dominated by Chinese suppliers, just like the list of top EV makers in the world, and all the units are dominated by Chinese suppliers too. But global supply of energy storage system reached 72.5 gigawatt hours in the first half of 2023, with Chinese suppliers making 47 gigawatts of that, or about 65% of the total. And Tesla supply during this exceeded 7 gigawatt hours, making it the top supplier globally. Okay? And people think, oh, no big deal. But it is a big deal. Let me explain why. This is the Lathrope facility in California. This is their, call it the parking lot where trucks come and pick up these Megapacks. And each one costs at least $2 million. Some are 2.5, some are 3 million, depending exactly how much capacity they have. So I just assumed each one is 2 million. There's 200 of these in the picture. 200 times 2 million is $400 million. Last earnings quarter, they're making 18% profit on these things. I think they're going to be making 20 to 50% profit in the near future, but I just assumed 20%. That means the total profit is $80 million just from what you see here in the picture. And that's just, they're going to be making 10,000 of these units a year out of this factory. And they're building an even more scalable factory in China to do the same thing. So again, it's not a car company is the point here, but the Tesla stock price today, $232. Total number of shares is 3.1 billion shares. So you're looking at here, just for the finance people in the audience, or anybody else who cares, this is the attribution of 3 cents per share in one shot, okay? Now the amount of cars you need to sell to make up that much profit attribution of 3 cents per share is a lot bigger than that image. And there's a lot of other tailwinds as well coming for Tesla. So again, it's not a car company. And I think that tells it better than anything else. So anyway, with that, everybody, thank you to everybody on Patreon for helping us do what we do and provide maximum KPM. Thank you to the mods in the chat and everybody out there. I see people from all over the world. I hope you learned something to do. Hit the likes on the way out, and I'll see you all tomorrow. Interesting face-off tomorrow. Dominating response in the poll from the community, again from Patreon. Patreon votes in this stuff. And I'll give you a teaser. It's going to be an AI-related face-off. You have to guess if it's going to be crypto or stocks. But either way, it'll be very enlightening. And I am very personally interested in finding out who wins, because I own both as well. So thank you, everybody. Have a great evening. I'll see you all tomorrow. Bye.